She didn't even flinch when the plate shattered. It slipped from my hand and broke against the kitchen tile, loud, sharp, final. Her eyes stayed glued to her phone like nothing had happened. No gasp. No, are you okay? Just the soft tapping of her acrylic nail against the screen, replying to someone who clearly mattered more. Outside, the birthday balloon I'd tied to the mailbox was barely swaying. Dead wind. Gray light. My name written in fading marker across the front door's sign. Happy 39th, baby. It looked like a joke now. I bent down to pick up the shards. The silence between us was unbearable, but not new. Just heavier than usual. From behind me, her voice finally cracked through. Don't start with your drama today. Please. No, happy birthday. No smile. Just that. I turned slowly, still holding a jagged piece of ceramic in my palm, and said, I made you breakfast. She scoffed. Did I ask you to? The air in the room dropped 10 degrees. Somewhere in my chest, something wilted and didn't get back up. She stood, still in her robe, and walked past me like I was invisible. As she reached the hallway, she muttered, not loud, but not low enough to miss. Every year it's the same needy routine. Grow up. I stood there, still gripping the plate shard, the edges pressing into my skin. I didn't even notice the blood until it hit the floor, just a tiny dot, the first of many. This wasn't a fight. It wasn't even an argument. This was something else. A disintegration. 3 hours later, she returned from a walk, wearing makeup she didn't leave with, hair brushed to perfection, and a cold soda from the gas station, the kind she used to bring me without asking. She placed it on the table in front of me. I didn't mean it like that, she said, watching my face without blinking. I love you. Okay? Can we just not ruin today? I nodded. I didn't say a word. But that night, after she fell asleep watching a reality show she once claimed to hate, I stood in the dark kitchen, staring at the flickering candle and the half-eaten cake. Something about the way the flame danced felt dishonest. Like even it didn't believe her. I didn't blow it out. I just opened the drawer, took out the spare key she didn't know I had, and opened the drawer to her private desk. And there, I found the note. Not written to me, but about me. And that's when I realized this birthday wasn't the beginning of the end. The end had already come. I was just the last one to know. It was the kind of paper you wouldn't think twice about. Thin, torn from a grocery list pad. The kind with floral borders and a magnet on the back. It didn't scream betrayal. It whispered it. But my eyes were trained now. And the way my name wasn't on it told me everything I needed to know. At the top, it said, to K. Just that. No full name. Just a letter. And suddenly, that single letter held more weight than anything she'd said to me in months. I wasn't looking for trouble when I opened that drawer. I was just hollow. I needed something, anything, to fill the silence she left behind every time she walked into another room without me. That drawer was the one place she told me never to touch, always brushed it off with a joke, said it was just receipts and junk mail. But the way she slammed it shut last week when I got too close? That wasn't a joke. That was fear. So I opened it. And I found the note. It wasn't long. That's what made it worse. Short things leave too much space for your imagination to fill in the gaps. It read, I can't keep pretending forever. He notices more than he lets on. But don't worry, he still thinks I love him. I just need a little more time. It wasn't signed. But it didn't need to be. There was only one person in our lives who fit that initial. Kyle. Her co-worker, the one who texted her at midnight about sales projections and sent her memes I was never allowed to see. I asked about him once. She laughed and said he was too young for her. I should have known that was a lie, the kind meant to disarm you just enough to stop asking questions. I sat at the kitchen table for hours that night, the note in front of me, untouched. At some point I started whispering my own name, like I needed to remind myself that I still existed. Curtis. 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 It sounded ridiculous, but it was all I had. The next morning, she was suddenly affectionate. She made me eggs, which she hadn't done in over a year, and kissed my cheek while humming some old tune from our early dating days. It should have felt sweet. It felt surgical, like a performance just for me. And I clapped for it, smiled like a fool, pretending not to know the curtain had already fallen. I didn't mention the note. I didn't even confront her. I started observing instead. Quietly. Carefully. Like someone studying an animal that might bite. Over the next week, patterns began to emerge. Her phone was always face down. Her laughter changed, softer when she was texting, hollow when it was with me. She took more showers than usual. She started wearing perfume to bed. Not a strong one. Just a hint. Just enough to convince herself she didn't smell like someone else. I went along with it. I held her hand. I complimented her dress. I said goodnight with a smile. Not because I believed her anymore, but because I needed time to plan my exit. Not a dramatic one. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to destroy her. I just didn't want to disappear quietly. Not like this. So I did something I never thought I would. I texted Kyle. No threats. No confrontation. Just, I know. No reply. But something in her shifted that night. She was stiff at dinner. Eyes darting toward the window every few seconds. She didn't touch her food. She didn't kiss me goodnight. She locked the bedroom door behind her, something we hadn't done since our second year of marriage. She was scared. Good. But I wasn't done yet. I had one more move to make, one that would require patience, precision, and a tiny bit of pain. Because while she thought I was the fool who didn't notice, she hadn't realized I was already gone. I just left the shell behind to keep her company. It's strange how easily you can become a ghost in your own home without ever dying. She didn't notice I'd stopped asking questions. She didn't realize I was no longer reaching for her in bed. She barely flinched when I started sleeping with the TV on, just loud enough to drown out her 2 a.m. footsteps when she thought I was asleep. The silence between us wasn't accidental anymore, it was tactical. I was done begging, done hoping. And I'd learned that quiet men get ignored, but invisible men, they can watch everything. I started writing things down. Every odd text alert that made her shove her phone under a pillow. Every last-minute errand that took exactly 47 minutes. The sudden uptick in ATM withdrawals from a bank we never used. The receipts in her car from gas stations nowhere near her office. I wasn't trying to be a detective, but when you've been lied to for long enough, the truth becomes a kind of oxygen you can't live without. One night, while she was in the shower, I went out to the garage. Her gym bag was there, same as always. But this time, there was a second phone tucked into the side pocket. No case, no lock screen, just open and dumb and screaming secrets. I stared at it, blinking. It took everything in me not to call her out right then, not to march in, dripping with fury, and demand the truth like some righteous idiot. Instead, I took pictures of everything. Every message, every call log, every selfie she sent to Kyle with captions like, "Wish you were here instead." I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even shake. I just stopped feeling. I backed everything up to a hidden drive. I started transferring money out of our joint account, not enough to raise red flags, just little withdrawals, always under $100. I canceled her credit card by accident, told her the bank must have flagged it. She barely noticed. Kyle was clearly the one paying for her fun now. I started selling small things online, tools she never used, extra electronics, my guitar. She didn't ask why the spare room looked emptier. She didn't notice the change in energy, the weightlessness in my voice. Because she was already gone. Her body was here, but her love, her loyalty, her soul, all of it had been handed to someone else. I was just the man who paid the Wi-Fi and made the bed. The hardest part? She started being nice again. I'd come home from work and there'd be dinner on the table. She'd rub my shoulders, leave notes like, "Thanks for being patient with me." Sometimes she'd cry at night and say she was feeling overwhelmed, and I'd nod and hold her, pretending I didn't know exactly where she'd been an hour earlier. But this wasn't remorse. This was guilt management. And I was done being her emotional sponge. So I did something very on me. I planned a dinner. Just the two of us. Candlelight. The nice wine. Her favorite music. I made her favorite meal, even got her the exact tiramisu from that overpriced bakery across town she once cried over during our second anniversary. She walked in the door, stunned, smiling like she'd won some unspoken game. Her eyes lit up like a woman who believed she was still loved. "Curtis," she whispered, dropping her purse. "You didn't have to." "But I did," I said calmly. "Because tonight is special." She sat down. She took a sip of wine. She even touched my hand across the table. "You're being so good to me lately," she said softly. "I've missed this version of us." I smiled, gently. "I know you have." And then, I reached under the table, pulled out a single sheet of paper, and slid it across to her. Not divorce papers. Not evidence. Just a printed message from her second phone. A selfie of her in my hoodie, captioned, "Wish this was your arms instead of his." I watched her face freeze, a flicker of horror followed by something more primal. Not shame. Not even sorrow. It was panic. She knew the curtain had dropped, and I was no longer in the audience. "Finish your wine," I said softly. "We've got one more course." She opened her mouth to speak, to deny, to cry, to spin some story, but I raised a hand and said, "No. Tonight, you listen." Because for once, I wasn't the fool begging to be loved. I was the man who had finally stopped pretending. And what came next? Well, even I wasn't prepared for it. She didn't touch the wine after that. Her fingers hovered near the glass, trembling slightly, as if it might burn her. Her mouth opened twice before a single word came out, and even then, it was a half-breath more than a sentence. "Curtis, this isn't what you think." I leaned back in my chair and tilted my head. That phrase, "this isn't what you think," is always the first shovel in the grave where the truth gets buried. She could have denied the phone, the note, the secret lunches and late-night absences. But she didn't. Not really. She went straight to the deflection stage. No apology. No collapse. Just fear, calculation, and performance. "Tell me what I think, then," I said calmly. "I'd love to know what story you've cooked up for me." She paused. Too long. Her eyes darted to the hallway, toward the stairs, not because she wanted to run, but because she knew her real phone was still in her purse upstairs. The one with a lock on it now. The one she never left behind. "I made a mistake," she said. "But it wasn't what you think. It wasn't serious. There's nothing casual about 10 hotel bookings under your name," I cut in. That silenced her. She looked like someone who had just realized the test she didn't study for was worth her entire grade. She stood up slowly, pacing now, and her voice changed, lower, firmer, like a manager handling a complaint. "You've been spying on me. Do you know how messed up that is, Curtis? How invasive?" I almost laughed. She was playing defense now, shifting the spotlight onto me, as if all of this was my violation. "I've been watching my own life crumble," I said. "That's not spying. That's survival." She turned sharply. "So what now? You humiliated me with this little dinner performance. You gonna post my photos online? Tell my family? What's your endgame?" It hit me then, she wasn't sorry. Not even a little. She was angry that she'd been caught. Furious, even. The tears she'd manufactured over the last few weeks, the soft touches, the sudden interest in being a better wife, it was all damage control. A sick little show designed to keep me in the dark while she figured out her next move. I stood up, took the plates from the table, and calmly dumped both servings of tiramisu into the trash. "You asked what my endgame is," I said quietly, still not facing her. "It's already in motion." "What the hell does that mean?" she snapped. I turned to her, finally, and set my phone face up on the counter. "You know how I always said I was too soft for confrontation? Too scared of conflict?" She narrowed her eyes. "I'm not anymore." There was a video on the screen. A screen recording of a full scroll-through of her second phone, messages, photos, timestamps, even a few videos. Everything. All of it. Her face turned white. "That's illegal," she whispered. "So is using our joint bank account to pay for motel rooms with another man," I replied. "But don't worry, I'm not pressing charges. I'm just protecting myself." Her breathing picked up. "Protecting yourself from what, Curtis?" I stepped closer, lowered my voice. "From the fallout." "Fallout," she echoed, almost laughing. "Curtis, no one cares about your little spreadsheet of heartbreak. No one's going to cry for you." I smiled. "They don't have to. But our mortgage company might care that I froze the home equity line. Your gym might care that I canceled your membership. And Kyle? He might care that I sent everything to his wife." That shut her down, like a switch being flipped. She took a step back. "You didn't." "I did," I said. "And in 5 days, you'll find the car you drive isn't registered to you." I moved the title. "You're welcome to keep it, if you can pay for it. Same goes for your phone line, credit card, insurance." Silence. Her lip trembled now, but not from sorrow. From rage. Because she realized I wasn't playing the role anymore. I wasn't the soft-spoken husband begging to be loved. I was the man who stopped waiting for permission to walk away. "What do you want?" she whispered. "Nothing," I said. "That's the point. You took enough." I walked past her, up the stairs, and into the guest room where I'd been secretly packing my things for the last week. By morning, I'd be gone. No shouting match. No final plea. Just air where I used to be. But as I zipped my suitcase, I heard her voice from the bottom of the stairs. Cold. Shaking. And a little too steady. "Curtis," she called out. "You think you've ended this your way, but you have no idea what's coming." And just like that, my exit wasn't clean anymore. It was war. Her words didn't just hang in the air, they dripped. Like venom off a blade. "You have no idea what's coming." And I should have kept walking. I should have treated it like a desperate bluff from someone whose lies were finally caving in. But I knew that tone. I'd heard it before, not in our fights, but in the way she spoke to telemarketers, customer service agents, waiters who got her order wrong. That tone meant control, and Avery had always hated losing control. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there in the guest room with the lights off, suitcase at my feet, the documents backed up and zipped into a drive I had hidden behind the vent cover. Her footsteps passed the door a few times, stopping once at around 2:30 a.m. I held my breath, hand gripping the metal zipper like it was a weapon. But she didn't knock. She just stood there, then walked away. In the morning, she was gone. No note. No call. Just gone. The quiet should have felt like peace. It didn't. It felt like an ambush waiting to unfold. I loaded my things into the car and drove to a small extended-stay motel about 40 minutes out of town. Not fancy, not scenic, but private. I'd already transferred my direct deposit to a new bank. I had my name taken off the utilities. I left a typed letter for the landlord explaining I'd be filing for a legal separation. The wheels were moving. I wasn't just disappearing. I was reclaiming what was left of me, piece by piece. 3 days passed with nothing. No calls. No texts. Just silence. Then, on the 4th day, I got an email. It wasn't from her. It was from my employer's HR department. The subject line: urgent, code of conduct violation, response required. My hands went ice cold. I clicked it open, and there it was, an anonymous complaint alleging harassment, emotional instability, and misuse of company property. My name, my job, my reputation, all under review. I read it twice, then again. It referenced private conversations, phrases I'd only said in our own home, things I knew I hadn't emailed or written down anywhere. She recorded me. She had recorded me. Little sound bites, probably twisted out of context. Maybe from that one night I vented about feeling used, about wanting to burn it all down. I never meant it literally. I was venting. But in an edited clip, it probably sounded like a threat. I called the HR contact immediately. A woman named Dana. She was polite, but careful. "Curtis, we just need you to know these are serious allegations. There's a process we must follow." I sat in my car outside the motel, staring at the dashboard like it was going to tell me what to do. I knew this was her play. She couldn't stop me from leaving, but she could smear the trail I left behind. She wanted to make me radioactive, so toxic that no one would want to touch me, believe me, or help me. I felt myself unraveling. I hadn't even made a public move yet. No post online. No shared files. I hadn't even told my parents. But she was already trying to burn the bridge I hadn't stepped off of yet. I wanted to scream, to drive straight to her office, to make a scene. But that's what she wanted, to paint me as unstable, emotional, irrational. So I took a deep breath and did something else. I called Kyle's wife. Her name was Whitney. I'd found her weeks earlier when this all began, but I hadn't contacted her out of some misguided idea of protecting people from pain. But now, pain was already in the room. It had a seat at the table, and it wasn't leaving. She picked up after the 3rd ring. Her voice was soft, confused, guarded. I told her who I was. I told her I wasn't calling to hurt her, but I had something she needed to see. I sent her the drive, the screenshots, the messages, the hotel receipts, the video clips. She didn't say much after that. Just a quiet, "thank you," and then hung up. The next day, I got another email. Not from HR. From Avery. No subject line. Just one sentence in the body. "You just started a war you can't finish." I stared at it for a long time. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Because what she didn't know was that I hadn't started a war. I'd already been fighting one. And now, I finally had someone on the other side of the battlefield with me. I woke up the next morning to 8 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. Same area code, though. 2 voicemails. One was blank. The other started with frantic breathing, followed by a voice I hadn't heard before. "Curtis, this is Whitney. Call me. Right now. Please." I dialed immediately. She answered before the first ring finished. "Curtis," she said, almost breathless, "I need to see you. Today." I met her at a small park on the edge of her neighborhood, far from our town, far from the eyes of anyone who might recognize us. It was cold, the kind of cold that made your thoughts sharper than your skin. Whitney was already sitting at a bench near the water when I arrived. No makeup, dark hoodie pulled over her head. Her phone clutched in one hand like it had betrayed her. She didn't cry. Not right away. She just said, "I knew." And that hit harder than if she'd screamed. I didn't know everything, she continued. But I knew. I just didn't want to believe it. He started changing months ago, little things. Always working late. Sleeping with his phone under the pillow. I told myself I was being paranoid. But I'm not paranoid. I'm just tired. I nodded, letting her talk. She needed it. I knew that feeling too well, the ache of someone listening not to reply, but to understand. Then she looked up at me with eyes full of something sharp. But Avery? I didn't know she was the one. I thought she was your sweet, quiet wife. I thought she sold furniture online or whatever. She sells lies, I said flatly. Whitney handed me her phone. Look at this. It was a text chain. Between her and Kyle. From just hours before. Kyle, you don't have to believe what that guy said. He's clearly unstable. Whitney, I saw the videos. Kyle, Avery told me he's been tracking her. That he's obsessed with her. I've seen this before, babe. He's dangerous. Kyle, let me come home. Let's talk in person. Please. Whitney, you're not coming home. Ever. I handed her the phone back. He's trying to spin it. He's not just spinning it, she said bitterly. He's full-on rewriting the story. He's telling his coworkers you've been stalking Avery since she tried to leave you. That you're unstable. That you forged those messages. He's playing victim hard. I exhaled slowly, trying to process it all. Avery's doing the same thing. She filed a complaint with my job. Trying to tank me before I can speak. Whitney scoffed. That explains the 3 calls I got this morning from some unknown number. You think she's panicking? I think she's planning something. We sat in silence for a while. A long, uncomfortable silence. 2 people who had loved liars. 2 people still bleeding from wounds we hadn't even located yet. Then Whitney turned to me and said something I didn't expect. I want to help you. I blinked. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not just going to sit here and cry about it. You gave me truth. Let me give you a voice. I've got friends, attorneys, reporters, people who know how to get a story heard. Not to blow it up. Just to protect you. I hesitated. I don't want drama. I don't want revenge. I just want out. Whitney shook her head. It's too late for just out, Curtis. They started this war. If you walk away now, they win twice. I didn't answer right away. The idea of dragging everything into public view made me nauseous. But then I remembered the email from HR. The voicemail from my manager asking me to take a leave while they investigate. The look on Avery's face when she said I had no idea what was coming. She'd already started the fire. Why shouldn't I hold the match she dropped? I still have the full copy of everything, I told Whitney. All the texts. The recordings. The files. I even have her confession to a friend, talking about how she was going to phase me out slowly. It's all on a backup drive. Her eyes sharpened. Let's make sure she never gets to write the ending. We left the park with a shared understanding. We were no longer 2 betrayed spouses. We were the counterweight to their lies. And while I wasn't a fighter, I was done being a doormat. That night, I checked my email again. One new message. From HR. They were putting me on administrative leave, without pay, pending further investigation. I stared at the screen. My breath caught in my throat. I had done nothing wrong. Nothing. But they'd poisoned the water faster than I could swim. Then my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. Keep digging and I'll bury you. No name. No signature. Just venom. And that's when I made the hardest decision of all. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to bring the whole truth to light, no matter what it cost. Because the truth was no longer mine alone. And in the shadows of their lies, I wasn't alone anymore. I spent that night staring at the ceiling in my motel room, watching shadows from the neon parking lot sign crawl across the walls like ghosts. My world had turned upside down, but the silence after that anonymous threat didn't shake me like I expected. It felt predictable. Expected. The final, bitter note of a song Avery had been playing on repeat behind my back. But what rattled me wasn't her threat. It was the quiet confidence I felt despite it. Maybe that was the scariest part. I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt like a man who had nothing left to lose. The next morning, I called in the favor Whitney had offered. Her friend, a soft-spoken woman named Lauren who freelanced for a regional investigative outlet, agreed to meet me at a diner just outside the city. I brought the backup drive, printed copies of the emails from HR, screenshots of Avery's messages, and a copy of my performance reviews from the last 5 years, glowing, spotless, and painfully ironic now that I'd been labeled emotionally unstable. Lauren didn't ask a lot of questions at first. She just listened, occasionally glancing up with eyes that told me she'd heard worse, and maybe even lived worse. When I finished, she tapped her pen against her notepad and said, "Curtis, this story is bigger than your marriage." I blinked. I don't want it to be big. I just want the bleeding to stop. I know, she said, but this isn't just a guy who got cheated on. This is coordinated reputational sabotage. She didn't just lie, she weaponized institutions to protect her lie. That's abuse. And if your employer fired you without due process, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. I suddenly felt cold all over. I hadn't even let myself think about court, or headlines, or public blowback. I just wanted my life back. But maybe that was naive. You can't recover what someone set on fire. You can only rebuild. 2 days later, the article went live. Lauren published it under the title, "Silencing the Innocent, When Lies Become Strategy in Domestic Breakdowns." She didn't name Avery or Kyle directly. No photos. No addresses. But she laid out the chain of events in razor-sharp detail: emotional manipulation, fraudulent HR reports, evidence of infidelity, financial tampering. She even quoted Whitney, anonymously, as a second source confirming the affair and the character assassination campaign. I didn't share it at first. I didn't have to. The internet did it for me. By lunchtime, my inbox was flooded. Messages from strangers, from men and women who said they had lived through similar betrayals, some worse. Messages from coworkers who had once avoided me now saying, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea." Even my manager left a voicemail saying, "We need to talk about how to fix this." But then came the message I hadn't expected. From Avery. No apology. No remorse. Just, "You think this little article makes you a hero? All it did was show the world how weak you really are. You're nothing without me. You always have been." And maybe she was right, once. But I wasn't that version of myself anymore. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the message to Lauren. She added it to the follow-up piece she was already working on. Avery must have realized the ground was shifting under her feet. Because the next day, my phone rang, and it wasn't her name that came up. It was my mother's. "Curtis," she said, panic thick in her voice. "Avery just came to the house." I stood frozen in the parking lot outside my motel. "What?" "She said she needed to talk to you. That she was trying to help you, and that you were spiraling. She said you were unwell. She asked me if you had a history of mental instability." My stomach dropped. She was trying to get ahead of the story. If she could convince enough people that I was unstable, maybe she could erase the truth altogether. Turn this whole unraveling into a case study in manipulation. But she made one mistake. She went after the last person who still believed in me without question, my mom. "She's lying," I told her. "There's a lot I need to explain. Can I come over?" "Of course," she said without hesitation. "Curtis, are you okay?" And for the first time in months, I answered honestly. "I'm getting there." I packed up my things that night, left the motel key on the nightstand, and drove straight to my mother's house. The same driveway where I learned to ride a bike. The same porch where I brought Avery home the first time and introduced her as the woman I'm going to marry. Now it was the place I would finally tell the full story, everything out loud, not through emails or articles or screenshots. And that night, after 2 hours of unraveling the truth to the one woman who'd never given up on me, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Real, unfiltered peace. But as I closed my eyes, my phone vibrated with a new message. From Kyle. "You have no idea what she's capable of." And I knew right then. This wasn't over. Not even close. For a long time, I stared at Kyle's message, replaying those words over and over in my head. "You have no idea what she's capable of." Maybe he meant it as a warning. Maybe as a threat. But it didn't scare me. If anything, it felt like confirmation. He knew what I had learned the hard way. Avery didn't stop when she was cornered. She clawed. She lashed. And when her back hit the wall, she didn't crumble. She tried to take you down with her. But I wasn't standing in front of her anymore. I was already gone. The next morning, I walked into my HR manager's office. Dana, the one who had initially suspended me. She looked surprised to see me. "Curtis." "I was just about to reach out," she said carefully. "There's been a lot of talk." I placed a thick folder on her desk. "Everything is in there," I said. Texts, audio recordings, copies of financial transfers she made from our joint accounts to fund the affair, screenshots of messages where she said she'd get me fired before I could make noise. I don't need an apology, but I do expect a retraction, and I expect my name to be cleared. She opened the folder and read in silence for several minutes. Her face tightened. She leaned back, exhaled slowly, and nodded. "You'll be reinstated by end of day," she said. "With full back pay." and a written apology from the company. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just said, thank you. Walking out of that building, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. I drove to a park after, the one where Whitney and I first sat in silence. She was already there, sitting under the same tree, flipping through a book. She looked up and smiled, a tired but genuine smile that made something settle in my chest for the first time in months. You okay? She asked. Better than I thought I'd be. She scooted over on the bench. You look like someone who just climbed out of a wreck. I did, I said, and I left the wreck behind. We sat there for over an hour, not talking much, just watching the wind stir the leaves and people pass by like they didn't know how close the world had come to swallowing me whole. Avery tried reaching out again. She emailed, texted, even sent a handwritten letter, saying she had lost herself and never meant to hurt me like that. She asked if we could meet just to talk. I didn't respond, because some doors, once closed, are better left that way. Whitney eventually divorced Kyle. Quietly, cleanly. She got the house. He got nothing. Turns out he'd been cheating longer than either of us knew, and she had more receipts than a tax auditor. As for me, I moved. Not far, but far enough that I no longer drove past the ghost of my old life every day. I switched jobs too. Same work, better team. People who knew me only for who I was now, not who I had been during the storm. And slowly, the weight lifted. I started writing again, cooking for myself again, laughing at dumb movies without needing someone next to me to validate the joy. I didn't become someone new. I just found the version of myself I'd forgotten. The one who didn't beg to be loved. The one who knew silence didn't mean peace. The one who lit a candle on his birthday and finally let it burn all the way down. I'm not broken anymore. And she lost the man who would have given her everything. But I gained something better. Me.